National History Day. War. It shaped our society since the beginning of time, and today war is quite different. Massive advances in technology have led to debate over the rights of our government, pitched against the problems that have led to change the responsibilities, which is in due part to the advances of warfare technology. Thesis. As a result of the Civil War, the United States formed a professional standing army to protect the rights of its citizens. In an effort to protect the rights of U.S. citizens, the formation of a professional standing army has burdened its citizens with the responsibility to improve technology of war and support those wounded protecting their right. War technology. You've heard me talk about the war technology in use today, and now I have some prime examples for you of the true expense of war technology. According to reports out of the Pentagon, the U.S. currently has over 7,000 aerial drones at their command. This is costing about $5 billion just for research, and the cost per flight per hour varies on the type of drone. Predator and Reaper drones costing about $2,500 to $3,500 per flight per hour, and larger armed systems such as the military's Global Hawk cost about 10 times as much, approximately $30,000 per flight per hour. The real kicker would be that the government is currently not putting these pricey drones to use. In 2010, the U.S. spent $693 billion on weapons, half the military spending of the whole world. How much are these advanced weapons costing the government? Some of the world's most recent technologies are also the most expensive. Here are just a few examples. The FF-22 Raptor, a stealth fighter jet. One jet costs $79.2 million. The total amount of units are 188. The Raptor is a hyper-maneuverable, stealth-enabled fighter that can eliminate targets long before they know it's in the sky. Equipped with 2 AM-9 Sidewinder missiles, 6 medium-range air-to-air missiles, and a 20 mm Gatling gun, 2 1,000-pound bombs, and 8 250-pound bombs, it gives the U.S. complete dominance capabilities. All of this expensive equipment, and not all of it is even being used correctly or currently. Only the surface has been scratched. Here are one example of the millions of weapons the U.S. alone has developed for the simple purpose of killing and killing alone. What do the people who have been on the front lines, who have endured the strength and killing power of these weapons, who have given up the possibility of seeing their family again, what do they get? Compensation for disability and death of soldiers and their families. Compensation received for the death of a spouse in the military is a one-time sum that is non-taxable, payable to families surviving service members. A payment of $100,000 is dealt out to the following people. If a soldier dies in training, transport, while in active duty, inactive duty, transport to final acceptance ceremony, at final acceptance ceremony, or dies on a training cruise, that soldier's family and loved ones shall receive all payment in equal shares, whether adopted or birth. Also, legal spouses, children, or friends are entitled if so wished by the deceased. Although, if you retire from the Army, you have 120 days to claim $12,420. Compensation for disability of a soldier. As far as Wounded Warriors Insurance goes, it seems that the standard rates depend on the nature of the injury. For example, payouts can range from $25,000 to $100,000 based on the nature of the injury. Losing eyesight in one eye, for example, pays out $50,000, and ratings go from 0 to 100% in increments of 10%. Amputation of one leg below the knee, for example, translates into a 40% disability, while losing both feet or being blinded in both eyes counts as a 100% disability. If a serviceman is medically discharged from the Army with a disability rating of at least 30%, he will receive medical compensation, also known as disability retirement, from the Department of Defense. This is determined by the severity of disability or length of service. Wounded warriors and the struggle of war victims. The cost. Over 2.2 million troops have served in Afghanistan and Iraq wars alone. Even though ending the war is supposed to save the U.S. billions of dollars a year, Ending the war won't stop the ghosts of debilitated veterans, the average age of a male veteran being 55 to 64 years old, and a female veteran being 45 to 54 years old. According to a 2009 study, most have at least half of their life left. A conclusion has been made is that the annual cost of treating vets from Afghanistan and Iraq wars would triple in the following decade, rising to $5.5 billion from $8.4 billion in 2020, from $1.9 billion in 2010. Another point to be made is that some war tactics and rules have changed. While lives are being spared, the cost increases. One prime example of this war tactic is total war. Total war. The scorched earth policy used to be a highly used war practice, especially in the French Revolution and Napoleon War. This is a strategy where war troops go in and burn everything to the ground so all opposing forces are destroyed. And the next troops that come in the area have no shelter or place to stay, the destruction of everything possibly useful to the enemy. Currently, the town of Bor in South Sudan is a ghost town. Every shop in the town destroyed, people dead, cars crashed littering the streets. The city was held by the rebel forces, but the current destruction was a product of Sudan's government, along with some troops from Uganda taking back the city, although now that city is in shambles. This method is similar to the purge and pillage of early civilizations, such as the Roman way of conquering villages. Impact. War has traveled through time with us. The Romans have led a victorious empire that still in some aspects has stayed with us into today. One of these things is an organized military or party of defense. Today we take this standard into new heights with today's killing technology coupled with our national debt. We still wage wars. This fighting impacts the lives of far too many U.S. citizens. About 2.5 million service members have been to wars and returned since 2001. Almost half of these have been deployed more than once, and many times that number of Americans have been affected as spouses, parents, children, and friends, and they have each coped with their loved one's absence, worried for their safety, and dealt with the changed person who usually returns. In addition, the families often take the burden of care for their injured relatives, even when still housed in military hospitals. When soldiers come home, they often face a life of physical disability due to their injuries. Almost 700,000 veterans currently have some degree of officially recognized disability as a result of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. But these survivors aren't the only ones fighting. Those wars mentioned are only from the most recent resolved conflicts. The Vietnam War is still affecting our society, partially because failure is such a big word for the American public. No matter how you look at it, Vietnam, it was a failure. Failure on a national and personal basis. Even if you had no personal involvement within the war, it all boils down to a waste of time, taxes, resources, and the lives of young Americans. Now we have to deal with the consequences. In this war alone, 58,000 were killed, 2,000 captured, and 350,000 maimed and wounded, with little to no results. These wars have results on a stereotypical level, however. After we have fought against our friends, family, and comrades, and they have survived almost 30 years and taken the time to decide what they think about the people they have fought against, raise their children on these beliefs. Also, for the people who have survived with physical and mental disabilities, how are they treated? They have to deal with the possibility of facing prejudice and hatred every day, along with the people that simply don't understand. Is it fair to them, after they have served our country, to be treated in such a manner? Another war that we can still see the effects from is World War II. Partially, the spending of temporarily putting Japan under U.S. control is still part of the U.S. debt. Also, England was dependent on the U.S. after the Blitz bombing of 1940. Directly after the bombing, England began phasing out the rest of its imperial holdings. Once those had been phased out, they looked to America for aid. Also, as this war was more or less a different type of war, one based off of hate crimes rather than just country-to-country conflict, enormous technological progress was made during the war. The English developed radar, which would be the forerunner of television. Process in electronics and computers made during the war provided a foundation for further development which fundamentally transformed the post-war world. The development of the atomic bomb by European and American scientists during the war not only transformed the nature of potential wars, it also marked the beginning of the nuclear power industry. Another change in the war, or rather after-war technology, was the use of prosthetic limbs. Although the use of this technology might seem like a recent innovation, there is actually quite a substantial history. This journey to today's bionic technology. Some of our most recent bionic developments include Beltroid's new bionic hand. Also, now scientists have been able to create a fully mechanical man. This man has been built by a leading biomechanical scientist. He's built completely out of mechanical parts and implants. However, this is very expensive, as you would imagine. The war is costing lives and money that could be refined and reduced by putting the excessive innovation to a standstill. While what we can have in the weapons industry can be maintained with slight adjustments made and boosting safety measures supporting vets' rights.